Terminator, Aliens, True Lies, Titanic all have in common legendary director James Cameron.
Indeed, James Cameron. Terminator 2, Judgment Day for the first time.
James Cameron.
James Cameron is
James Cameron.
Stanley Kubrick, George Lucas, James Cameron.
You better start moving and feel the music.
Oscar goes to
Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
James Cameron is back.
the Oscar goes to Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
And James Cameron has done it again.
James Cameron's Avatar has become the highest grossing movie of all time.
For Terminator 2, as a star-studded audience lined up for their chance to
Touch the sky, you know the reasons why. Just dance. Come on, just dance.
This movie has changed the way we all see movies. Thank you for
It is Terminator 2, and thanks to some truly spectacular and mystifying special...
You are a commercial filmmaker. Anybody in the history of cinema has ever been a commercial filmmaker. You are the king.
I'm the king of the world!
James Cameron has managed to land 3 movies in the top 10 highest-grossing films of all time. His stories aren't as complex as Nolan's, nor as dramatic as Scorsese's, nor do they have the wildest plot twists like Tarantino's. But every single one of his films has something in common. They're the reason people still go to the movies. His path has been full of clashes with actors and crew members, plagiarism accusations, mistreatment, and pushing his passion so far that some of the people who worked with him nearly ended up in tragic situations. This is the story of a hot-tempered young truck driver who changed the way movies are made. This is Cameron. James Cameron. James Francis Cameron was born on August 16, 1954, in Kapuskasing, Ontario, Canada. His family had emigrated from Scotland in the early 1800s. He was the son of Philip Cameron, an electrical engineer, and Shirley Lowe, an artist and nurse. James spent his childhood in the town of Chippewa and studied at Stamford Collegiate School. In 1971, when he was 17, his family moved to Brea, California. There, he attended Sonora High School and Brea Olinda High School. From a young age, he had been fascinated by Stanley Kubrick's sci-fi masterpiece, A Space Odyssey, and even though he tried to pursue college studies, enrolling in physics and English literature at Fullerton College, he dropped out a few months later. His real passion was special effects, and he taught himself by spending long hours in the library at the University of Southern California. He held several jobs, from mechanic to truck driver. But after Star Wars came out in 1977, he made a life-changing decision. He was going to work in the film industry. In 1978, at just 24 years old, James Cameron teamed up with Randall Frakes to create the sci-fi short film Xenogenesis. The project had a budget of $20,000, and Cameron himself persuaded several local dentists to help fund it. The 12-minute short tells the story of a man and a woman traveling through space in search of a habitable world where they can start the cycle of life all over again. The film isn't just important because it marks Cameron's early steps into science fiction, or because he used stop motion to bring an unstoppable robot to life. The real standout detail is that the title's typography would later become the exact same one he used in the movie that would define his career. In 1979, Roger Corman, one of the most influential producers in the industry, hired him to supervise special effects on films like Battle Beyond the Stars, where Cameron earned his first credits as a production designer and special effects assistant. He also worked on Escape from New York, directed by John Carpenter and starring Kurt Russell, where he handled elements of the set design. These small gigs earned him an important recommendation. After the success of the 1979 movie Piranha and the rise of the slasher genre, Roger Corman recommended James Cameron to direct the sequel. And even though horror wasn't exactly his favorite genre, it did include an element that would follow him throughout his entire career: water. And that's how Piranha II premiered in 1982. But the experience couldn't have gone worse. James Cameron was fired just 3 weeks into shooting after multiple disputes and complaints from the crew. Even so, his name still appeared in the credits. His talent, however, went far beyond special effects. In the early 80s, he spent most of his time writing on his own, proving he was also a solid screenwriter. He was responsible for 2 major projects. He wrote the script for Rambo, First Blood Part 2. Although it was later rewritten by Sylvester Stallone, Cameron still received credit. He also wrote the sequel to Alien, Ridley Scott's groundbreaking success. By 1982, he had finished writing what would become his entry point into major Hollywood studios. As the story goes, one night when he was sick and feverish, he had a nightmare of a futuristic robot emerging from flames. That dream became the seed for the Terminator. Although later, this origin would be questioned and even taken to court. Cameron knew that after his disastrous first directing experience, studios wouldn't easily let him direct again. He tried selling the script to several major studios, but most either wanted to buy the rights outright or produce it with a different director. Cameron refused. His main condition was that he would direct it and have creative control. That's why he sold the script for just $1 to his friend at the time, Gail Ann Hurd, a woman who would become extremely important in his life. Not only because she later secured financing from Orion Pictures to get the film made, but also because she would become his second wife in what would eventually be a long list. In 1984, The Terminator was released. The film tells the story of a futuristic robot sent back in time to kill Sarah Connor, because in the future she will be the mother of John Connor, the leader of the resistance against the machines. A soldier named Kyle Reese is also sent back to protect her. This script already carried the trademarks that would define Cameron's career. A strong female character with a fierce maternal survival instinct, something that has an explanation rooted in his personal life, since James Cameron was raised primarily by his mother. His films also tend to have straightforward narratives, easy to follow and accessible to everyone. And of course, the heavy use of special effects is another defining trait of his filmography. The movie was a huge success, making more than 10 times its budget. Arnold Schwarzenegger began cementing his status as a Hollywood star. The Terminator became the foundation that launched Cameron's career as a director. After its release, Cameron faced accusations of plagiarism. He openly admitted taking inspiration from Halloween, specifically the idea of an unstoppable, emotionless killer, and from the 1980 film The Exterminator, not only in the name, but in some visual and narrative elements. The TV series The Outer Limits featured an episode where a good robot and an evil robot travel from a post-apocalyptic future into the past and end up fighting to protect a woman. The writer of that episode filed a lawsuit, which was ultimately resolved out of court. He later received a brief acknowledgement in the film's credits,
Tell it to Harlan Ellison.
I wish someone would have come from the future and warned me not to talk to you.
That's my idea! You're stealing my idea!
Sorry.
In 1986, since he had already written the script and gained some prestige thanks to the success of The Terminator, the studio decided to give James Cameron a vote of confidence. They put him in charge of Aliens. A lot of people had advised him not to direct it, warning that because Ridley Scott's first film had been such a massive hit, it would be almost impossible to top or even match it. However, Cameron delivered a tight, consistent script that gave Aliens that signature action-driven punch he's known for, while still keeping the suspense and adding genuinely terrifying moments. Aliens is widely considered one of those rare cases where the sequel actually surpasses the original. But hey, that's a debate for the fans. Let me know in the comments which one you think is better. This is also where Cameron's reputation as a difficult director really started to solidify. Throughout the production, he clashed with crew members. His lack of patience, blunt way of speaking, and bad temper quickly became legendary, fueling plenty of memes within the film community.
What closed set? I don't see a closed set. You can't come in here. Back.
Despite the success of The Terminator, he was still a newcomer in the industry, and his personality didn't sit well with the British crews. The story once again centers on Ellen Ripley, the true protagonist of the saga, but now with an added layer, a fierce maternal survival instinct. The film maintains everything that worked in Alien, but adds many more xenomorphs and a simple yet convincing storyline. Officer Ripley wakes up from cryosleep and faces heavy questioning about the destruction of the Nostromo.
3, 2, 1.
Eventually losing her flight license and rank. When she's told that a colony has been built on a small planet that might be overrun by xenomorphs, she's sent along with a group of Marines to investigate. There, her encounter with a young girl awakens her protective instinct, pushing her to survive and escape no matter what. Aliens became an absolute box office hit, hinting at the kind of powerhouse director James Cameron was about to become.
Get away from her, you bitch!
In 1989, Cameron directed The Abyss, a film based on his own script and built around an element he's always been obsessed with: the deep ocean. The production quickly became a landmark in film history. A massive artificial tank was constructed, holding millions of gallons of water that had to be pumped in from a nearby river and filtered, since about 90% of the movie would be shot underwater and they needed crystal clear visibility. And that wasn't the only challenge. An entirely new underwater camera housing system had to be invented, along with lighting and communication rigs designed specifically for the film. Cameron also required months of intense training for every actor who would be diving. His extreme passion pushed the cast to their limits. Ed Harris nearly lost his life during one of the scenes when his diving suit started leaking and he struggled to breathe. Once again, the plot is straightforward. A group of Navy SEALs and deep-sea explorers are sent on a mission to recover the remains of a U.S. nuclear submarine that sank after colliding with an unidentified object. Down there, they encounter a mysterious life form and begin to suffer the effects of paranoia and claustrophobia. The film contains almost every hallmark of Cameron's work: a strong female lead, water, and groundbreaking special effects. One particular scene clearly served as inspiration for what would become his next big project. The Abyss wasn't the commercial hit the studio expected, partly because the production was incredibly expensive and the budget kept swelling. Another major factor was that the film was trimmed by 30 minutes due to studio pressure, cutting out political dialogue, emotional moments, and key narrative elements. When the film was re-released in 1993, those deleted scenes were restored. Another possible reason for its underperformance was the fierce competition that year. Batman by Tim Burton, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and Lethal Weapon 2 all premiered that same summer, offering audiences bigger, more established franchises.
I'm James Cameron, and I want to take you into a world of cold, darkness, and unrelenting pressure.
In 1991, TriStar Pictures approved what was considered a massive budget at the time, $100 million, for the blockbuster production of Terminator II, Judgment Day. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton returned, and the film introduced a new, instantly iconic villain, the powerful T-1000, played by Robert Patrick. Once again, the narrative is simple but incredibly effective. Sarah Connor is now locked up in a mental institution after no one believed her crazy story. The deadly pursuit of a new unstoppable machine now targets her son, John Connor. But this time, defending the family is the T-800 Terminator, reprogrammed by the future resistance and now fighting on the good side. The plot isn't just about survival, it's also about preventing the creation of Skynet, the artificial intelligence responsible for humanity's destruction in the future. The film deals with serious themes and criticizes the dangers of nuclear weapons, a topic especially present during James Cameron's childhood in the Cold War era. Throughout the movie, we see the characters evolve, and that's what makes for a good, solid script. The hero's journey in its purest form, a powerful structure that contains the formula behind every great story. A simple foundation that many modern films seem to have forgotten how to apply. All the great franchises that still hold up today were created in the 80s. The closest thing to a new saga we've had since then is Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings. But that's a topic for another video. Terminator 2 became the film that truly cemented James Cameron's status. The action sequences looked real because in many cases, they were real. An unmistakable soundtrack. Groundbreaking visual effects that still hold up more than 30 years later. Iconic scenes, unforgettable lines.
Come with me if you want to live. Hasta la vista, baby. Dog's name. Max. Your foster parents are dead.
A pop culture phenomenon that remains just as relevant today. In 1994, Cameron released the most different film in his entire filmography, True Lies. A comedy starring Arnold Schwarzenegger once again. And if you think Arnold is the only one who's been Austrian-level cold-blooded enough to survive James Cameron's abuse and still come back for more, well, there's actually one actor who beats him and shows up in almost all of Cameron's movies. You can try guessing now, or stick around until the end to find out. True Lies is a mix of action, suspense, and comedy. The story centers on a married couple, where the husband is a highly skilled spy trying to fake a boring, normal life. Everything changes when a possible affair involving Jamie Lee Curtis makes him realize just how dull and monotonous her life has become. So he comes up with a plan to give her an exciting adventure. But everything spirals out of control when she discovers who he really is. Even though the movie is based on the French film La Totale. James Cameron added the final touches, including iconic moments like the Harrier jet sequence and the motorcycle versus horse chase. Many fans remember it fondly as one of those movies they just don't make anymore. That mix of ridiculous comedy and big, explosive action. A combo that's pretty rare today.
If you're going to spend $200 million on a movie, this is the way to do it.
In 1997, Cameron released what would become the biggest commercial success of his entire career, Titanic. For many, it remains the greatest disaster film ever made. With a massive budget of $200 million, James Cameron was determined to squeeze every cent to create the most ambitious production in cinema history. Cameron had always been fascinated by shipwrecks, but that passion grew even stronger after meeting Robert Ballard, the renowned oceanographer who discovered the real Titanic wreck in 1985. At first, Cameron pitched a documentary-style project, complete with expedition footage meant for theatrical release. But he soon realized he could merge his two passions in a truly legendary way. He presented to 20th Century Fox a script for a Romeo and Juliet-style love story set aboard the Titanic, one that would ultimately sink into the depths of the ocean.
Wow, this is an amazing story. It's really heart-wrenching. It's really, it's really tragic. And I thought, tragic love story, Romeo and Juliet, put it against that background. Yeah. And it just popped. It just popped into my head like that.
The studio wasn't thrilled about the idea, but they greenlit the film anyway. Cameron was clever, though. He proposed promoting the movie with real footage of the shipwreck. He requested multiple deep-sea dives to study the sunken vessel firsthand and capture footage with specially engineered cameras capable of withstanding the extreme pressure. Over 2 years, he spent more than $2 million on 20 high-risk dives to achieve this goal. Cameron pushed his passion to the limit, personally taking charge of the historical research about the passengers and every detail necessary to make the setting as accurate and immersive as possible. Fox acquired an enormous stretch of land on the coast of Baja California to build an almost full-scale replica of the ship. Using photos and the original blueprints, the cabins and interiors were recreated exactly as they were on the actual ocean liner. The grand staircase from first class, an important element in the film, was built from real wood and was actually destroyed during the sinking sequence. After multiple re-releases, each one hugely successful, Titanic has become the highest-grossing film in cinema history, if we don't adjust for inflation. Many argue that Gone with the Wind would surpass it by a large margin if inflation were considered.
Why are you coming back?
Because it's good.
What's good about it?
I like the story. It seems like a real story.
Is it very good?
The romance, I think. Just the story. Like love and loss. That's why I went to go see it again.
Titanic also faced controversy because several scenes are strikingly similar to those in the 1958 film A Night to Remember. However, the author of the original work passed away in 2002, and no legal case was ever established. Many consider the similarities to be a homage. Cameron himself stated that since both films are based on real historical events, similarities were inevitable. But it's hard to deny that some scenes are almost identical.
Why aren't you wearing your life belt?
Well, the passengers mustn't think I'm scared.
Let them see you wearing it. Put it on, child. For your own sake, too.
Lucy, for God's sake, put on your life belt. Set a good example.
Yes.
Avast, lower! Lower away.
Ready on the left. Take them down.
Out top.
Take a turn around the baby, lower the...
2005, James Cameron announced that he was already working on a new film, which he called Project 880. However, he mentioned that he had originally begun writing the foundations of the script back in 1995. But because the technology he needed to bring it to life didn't exist yet, he shelved it until the time was right. The project required two essential components to be possible. First, motion capture. The characters Cameron had envisioned weren't human and needed to look realistic. Second, he wanted the film to debut in theaters using 3D technology, something he was a major supporter and enthusiast of.
I like 3D, right? We see the world in 3D. I'm a big advocate of 3D for narrative, storytelling, for documentary, for sports, for everything, you know.
In 2009, the world of audiovisual technology had already transformed. 20th Century Fox gave James Cameron what was essentially a blank check, and the project grew until it reached a budget of nearly $240 million. But every dollar would prove worth it. From thousands of computer-generated images to creating an entirely new language from scratch with the help of linguistics experts, Avatar became the ultimate realization of Cameron's long-held dream. His passion for nature was reflected in every creative decision. From the very beginning, the film was shot with custom-designed cameras, specifically with a 3D theatrical release in mind. A major pillar of the film was capturing the natural beauty of the landscapes, supported by stunning real-world locations used to bring the moon of Pandora, the coveted alien world, to life. Once again, Cameron crafted a simple yet powerful narrative. The story follows the struggle of the native inhabitants as they defend their home from a ruthless foreign corporation determined to wipe them out if needed, all in pursuit of an extremely valuable mineral. For that mission, they rely on Jack Sully, a former Marine who lost the use of his legs but can operate a Navi-like body through advanced neural link technology. This body, an avatar, is an artificial shell controlled remotely. In the end, Jake switches sides after meeting Neytiri and discovering the deep spiritual bond her people share with their world. The blend of alien landscapes, groundbreaking visual effects, and a strong musical score made Avatar an unprecedented global phenomenon, but not without controversy. Once again, Cameron faced accusations of plagiarism from multiple similar stories. None of these claims resulted in convictions, and courts consistently ruled in Cameron's favor due to lack of evidence. Some people even compared Avatar to Pocahontas. And the truth is, many works could have served as inspiration since the core of the film is built on a simple, familiar premise. A powerful, exploitative force invades peaceful land to conquer it and extract its resources. In the end, what truly makes Avatar special isn't its plot. It's the fusion of real environments with digital artistry, the realism of its alien species, and its unique, unforgettable visual design. In 2022, after countless delays, Avatar, The Way of Water finally hit theaters. It was a massively anticipated sequel that didn't just reinforce everything the first film had achieved, but added Cameron's favorite element front and center: water. The movie became a landmark in filmmaking thanks to the first ever underwater motion capture technology. And once again, the GOAT delivered. With a gigantic $350 million budget, the film pulled in over $2.3 billion worldwide. James Cameron doesn't just make movies. He creates full-on cinematic experiences. That's a big part of why he's the highest-grossing director of all time. But Cameron is more than just box office numbers. His scripts always offer a meaningful, organic evolution for his characters. That's why Ellen Ripley evolves from a lone survivor into a commanding leader within the alien universe. And why Sarah Connor transforms from a vulnerable waitress into a relentless, battle-hardened warrior. Two of the most iconic and well-written female characters in action cinema. In his personal life, James Cameron has been married to Susie Amos for 25 years. They met during the production of Titanic, and she became his fifth, and so far longest-lasting marriage. He has 5 children, and none of them have followed his footsteps into the film industry. This was the filmography of one of Hollywood's greatest directors, someone who reached the very top without any formal academic training in filmmaking. Now it's your turn. Let me know in the comments what your favorite James Cameron movie is. And while you're at it, tell me if you agree with me. Is James Cameron the best director when it comes to sequels? Is he the only filmmaker who consistently delivers great follow-ups? I'll be reading your comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.